a Serbian Eastern Orthodox Christian and a Croatian Catholic who is a religious person,
Mm-hmm.
they will agree with each other on the issues of traditional family values. But then the Croatian guy loves Ante Pavlich and he loves the Ustasha. They're going to agree. There's going to be overlap in their belief system, in their worldviews, but then there's going to come a point where the two are going to say, "Wait a second, we're antithetical to each other to a great extent because you revere an historical figure that murdered my people. You revere Ante Pavlich. There has to be boundaries."
How fucked up this is, but I believe they could bury an axe to fight common enemy. Can I tell you something? Okay, I'm gonna call your position kind of turbo Christian. Is that okay?
Turbo Christian?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Anytime someone tries to say, well, Elon Musk is actually the good guy, I have to question that perspective. And there's Jordan Peterson with them, and David Rubin is talking about having a kid. Well, how can David Rubin have a kid with another man? How is this different from wokeism? All right, so we are speaking with Johnny from Serbia. He wants to give me some of his thoughts on the new right. So I'm going to give you the mic. Johnny from Serbia, go right ahead and give me your thoughts.
I wanted to kind of talk about this kind of new Trump right, and kind of give you my thoughts, because I am following this for a very long time, and I can really see for a long time where it's coming from. Um, so do you want me to continue?
Go ahead. Yes, the floor is yours. So give me your thoughts on the new right
Okay,
and what you
first
want
and
to
foremost.
and what you want me to know.
Okay, you can like stop whenever you want, and whenever you want to kind of ask any questions. First,
Okay.
this new right, it's not no, it's not a one thing. It's basically anti-woke coalition. You know, they are basically joined together because they have a common enemy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not one thing. Uh, so that's why it's very disjointed. Most of it, it's a lot of it is Democrats, basically. You know, that basically Democrats from 90s and 2000s who kind of shifted to the right. But now after the Gamergate, you know, this kind of thing, and Trump then came along, then I would say this kind of movement, and I'm gonna call this movement cultural Christians. You know, cultural Christians.
Mm-hmm.
Now, uh, this movement was kind of solidified, in my opinion, with Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson, I think, started in 2015,
Yeah.
and but he's like 2016, 17 was like his peak
Yeah. He
kind
blew up.
of popularity. Yeah, he blew up.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is the kind of idea with cultural Christians?
Mm-hmm.
Cultural Christians are people who would say to you something like this. Um, if you ask them, "Do you believe in God?" They will tell you, "I act if as if the God is real."
I act as if God is real. Okay, that's what Jordan Peterson
Yeah,
said years ago.
yeah, years ago. And this their kind of guiding principle,
Mm-hmm.
uh, because because they want to see results, and they see if you adopt these values, you get good results.
Okay.
Simple as that. Yeah. So some of them actually become you know, kind of Christian and become believing in God. Some of them didn't, but they still have those kind of principles. But I see another force in this this new right movement, that is very different than the last one that I described.
Okay.
This force comes from techno bros, or from these technocrats.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, the technocrats, Silicon Valley, you know, tech bros, how do you want to
Silicon
call
Valley.
them?
Yeah.
Yeah, they basically worship a machine god. If
Mm-hmm.
you if you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
AI
Okay,
transhumanist.
yeah, AI transhumanist. Now you have two camps there. Now one is kind of anti-human accelerationists.
Mm-hmm.
This is Sam Altman. This kind of people who think that probably AI is gonna replace kind of humans, that we're kind of creating something else. Because let's be honest, uh, the the kind of woke mind winders is a death cult, and
Mm-hmm.
this is kind of the idea of, and the main idea of this wokeness is minimize pain, minimize inconvenience, minimize like maximize pleasure. And if you want
Right.
to minimize like the kind of inconvenience and pain, the best way is simply to kind of wipe up humanity.
Wipe out humanity.
That's the end. Yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
the end goal.
Mm-hmm.
Basically Terminator. In a real life.
Mm-hmm.
T1000 and everything, Skynet. You know, and they think that they're gonna bring the kind of AI machine God into life.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have the other uh, tech bros who are also kind of have similar views, but they're pure pro humans, and that's kind of Elon Musk camp. You know,
Okay.
the Elon Musk really thinks that future of humanity is merging man and machine.
Mm-hmm.
So the kind of I forgot his company is called that puts the chip in the brain. What's the name of the company? Neuralink. Yeah, Neuralink.
The
That's the,
Neuralink,
that's the
yeah.
company that, yeah, the Neuralink company. That's the company that does that.
Mm-hmm.
It's Elon Musk, and he believes in that. You know, so uh, basically that part of kind of pro human, if you want to say, if you want to call it that way, pro human technocrats, Silicon Bros, are also joined this kind of new right, and you can see this in like this mm, kind of giant merging of two kind of different ideologies, and you can and it's perfectly represented with Elon Musk at one side and JD Vance at another, and basically Donald Trump as a kind of strong man that is holding everything together.
So you're saying that JD Vance is also part of the Silicon Valley group.
No, no, no. JD Vance is kind of the other side. He's the kind of cultural Christians.
Right, but Vance also was in Silicon Valley for a while, and he's also with Peter Thiel, who's a Silicon Valley guy. He's one of the elites of Silicon Valley.
Yeah, but okay. As far as I can tell,
Okay.
I'm not gonna say that I'm 100% right, but as far as I can tell, like he's more more to me is like would describe it as cultural Christian, and Elon Musk is this kind of uh, tech bro who basically merging machine with human, this kind of transhumanism, but
Hmm.
not really, this kind of weird hybrid of it.
Well, it is transhumanism. He definitely is part of that movement because he believes, and I've said this before, that the Neuralink will be a next step in the process of human evolution. So
Hmm.
automatically, I mean, he's saying that those who will have the Neuralink are going to be more evolved than the ones who don't have the Neuralink. And he himself has said that there's going to come a point where you'll have two computer programmers, and the one that has a Neuralink lodged in his head is going to be more efficient than the one who doesn't have the Neuralink. So there's definitely evolutionism. The I would say the foundational ideology for transhumanism is evolutionism because it's all about
uh,
evolution. It's all about human evolution. and for them that
Yeah.
entails
Look,
that entails merging mankind with the with artificial intelligence.
okay.
So there's definitely a eugenist um, component, and so also when you say that Elon Musk is pro-human, I would push back on that by saying that Elon Musk has talked about the decline of births, but he is specifically fixated on the decline of births in first world countries, and he believes that the great tragedy is that certain people aren't having as many kids. Not that people aren't having as many kids, generally speaking, but that certain people aren't having as many kids. And by certain people, he's talking about people who are higher in the IQ spectrum. So there's definitely a eugenic component in all of this.
I
We
mean,
can go
he's
more.
look. Yeah, I wanna first
I would say that Musk
kind
is
of say,
much more deceptive than other people.
uh, yeah. I mean, he's a salesman. He knows how to sell stuff.
I mean, it's
He's
more
a salesman
deceptive
first and
because
foremost.
when people are saying, well, you have
Yeah.
the evil transhumanist, but then you have the good transhumanist. That's like when people say, oh, you have the good Muslim terrorist who wants a nice form of Sharia law, but then you have the ISIS terrorist. It's like one is more deceptive than the other. It's like the communists who say, well, I want nice communism. And then you have the communist who comes out and says, I want gulags. I mean, you're probably going to end up in a gulag even if you go with the nicer communists. So
I don't. I look. I'm not convinced about it. I don't know, to be honest. I'm not convinced by it. Um, I just lost my train of thought. But I wanted to say about Elon Musk. Um,
we're talking about Elon Musk
Let
birth
me think.
rates, IQ.
Yeah,
Yeah.
about birth rate. Well, the reality is he's right about birth rates, and it's big problem in the Western countries. And you can't kind of continue this kind of Western countries if you're just gonna import people from the third world. You can't. This is just not gonna be sustainable, in my opinion.
So when Elon Musk was asked, are you pro abortion?
Not really. I'm not. I'm not pro abortion.
Okay.
Like I really see that as kind of if someone has an abortion, like a big moral failure.
Okay, so that's the
But
position of
I'm
the
not.
Orthodox Church.
Yeah, but look, I'm not gonna say that that I'm like all that religious. I'm not really comfortable with saying all that. You know, uh, Oh, I would say it's a big moral failure, but I'm not sure if I would want to kind of what's the word, ban abortion. I'm not sure I would want to do that.
Well, the Orthodox Church wants to ban abortion.
Yeah, I know about that, but I don't know. I haven't kind of haven't collected my thoughts about it.
Well, before we
All that
okay, but
much.
before we get into that, and we can debate on abortion if you want, but
No,
Elon, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Can you remember this about Elon? I just wanted to say something that I think is really important
Okay.
about this whole discussion. Yeah, uh, I wanted to talk about this and the evolution. The kind of you have these two sides of right. This kind of cultural Christian and this technocratic side. In my opinion, like this is totally my opinion, and their views on evolution, in my opinion, are very different. Like, look, both of those sides believe in evolution, but cultural Christians believe that evolution is a kind of God's design, and we as a kind of pure mortals and kind of being humble do not think that we can understand that, and that is basically God's will, this cultural Christian side, you know. But the technocratic side of it, they think that they can manipulate evolution and basically merge. humans with machine. And I see in like uh, 5 or 10 years big split and big divide between those two sides.
So, for one thing, you're correct that both sides believe in evolution. And you are also correct when you say that there is this agenda to manipulate humanity in this agenda of evolutionism. That's what Elon Musk wants to do. Elon Musk wants
Yeah,
to
that's
manipulate human beings, and in this ideology of transhumanism, in which there will be, in his mind, this merging together of man with machine, man and AI. So, for one thing, we have to first just see the fact and just recognize the fact that Elon Musk is a
mhm.
transhumanist. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
So, anytime someone tries to say, well, Elon Musk is actually the good guy, I have to question that perspective. I have to call into question and challenge that position because he is a transhumanist. And just going back on abortion, this is what I wanted to say about abortion and Elon Musk. Elon Musk was asked about abortion because you have all these Americans who think, oh gosh, is he going to become a Christian, or has he found the Lord, or is he really a conservative? He's one of us now. American conservatives are very excited anytime someone famous becomes a conservative, or someone famous at least has a facade of
He's
being
not.
being a conservative. So he was asked, well, what do you think about abortion? Do you think that abortion is wrong or whatever? And he said, if a baby can live outside of the womb, it should be protected. And everyone's clapping their hands. But if a baby can live outside of the womb, well, of course, that baby can be born. That baby has the ability, or is in the right condition to be birthed. That's not what
Mhm.
the pro life movement is talking about. We're talking about unborn babies. So by that position, what Elon Musk is implying is that babies who cannot live outside the womb can be aborted. So he believes in abortion. He's a pro choice transhumanist who is hoodwinking all of these conservatives. Because if you believe, well, if the baby can live outside the womb, then it shouldn't be aborted. Okay, well, all the Democrats agree with him. All the pro abortion,
No,
all the
no.
mainstream, yeah. If, in fact, every time someone has brought up partial birth abortion in these debates between Republicans and Democrats, the Democrat will always say, no, 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 we don't believe in partial birth abortion. Now, that's bullshit. I will say they do
Yeah.
eventually. If they get what they want, they will go into partial birth abortion.
Mm,
But my point is that partial birth abortion has such a stigma against it that people will tend to shy away from agreeing with it. And so Elon Musk is taking the mainstream pro-choice position, which is, yes, abortion is okay as long as the baby cannot live outside the womb. Abortion is okay. So he is a pro-choice transhumanist. That is just blatantly obvious. He believes in manipulating humanity for this cause of transhumanism. That's Neuralink. So he is all of these things that you're describing. He's a
mm.
eugenist, plain and simple. A lot of his kids were born through embryo selection, which is eugenics. He's trying to find the embryo that
Oh,
has
I
the
didn't know
genetic.
that.
Yes, a lot of his kids were born through embryo selection, IVF.
Uh,
So
okay, okay, okay.
he is just, my point is that he is just as much of a transhumanist as Peter Thiel is, and they're friends. I mean, they're allies. And
Mm,
JD Vance, look into him. JD Vance worked with Peter Thiel.
mhm.
They're friends.
Look, look. Let me preface this. Uh, my my kind of idea is, and this is maybe I'm wrong about this. I was talking about this kind of cultural Christian side, and about this kind of uh, tech bro side. I think those two sides are gonna create two new kind of left wing and right wing parties. I think that woke cult is on decline,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know what's gonna happen with it, but uh, it would take like another 5 to 10 years to actually dismantle it. Uh, and I think that this kind of new right will stay together as long as the Trump is in power,
Mm-hmm.
because Trump is like Tito with former Yugoslavia. You know, as
He's
long as
well.
he's here in
His
power,
wife is Balkan. Keep in mind,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
she's
But look,
Slovenian.
it's yeah, yeah, yeah. The Slovenian, yeah. But look, he's basically it's basically the same situation. You have a strong man leader with a charisma that
Mm-hmm.
that is holding everything together. Moment he steps down, and dies, or something else. I mean, he's an old guy,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Uh, the moment that's the moment when this kind of a new right will fracture. Also, this new right is kept together by fighting the kind of wokeism. Yeah. So basically, they are kept together by having a common enemy.
Mm-hmm. I think that's totally plausible. I think when Trump goes, yeah, there could be schisms and they could be splinter movements. And absolutely, I don't. There's nothing
I
there for me to
I
disagree
see
with.
I see yeah, I see right now I see those two factions as kind of the strongest one. What will happen, I don't know. This is kind of my prediction, and predictions are very often wrong, but this is my opinion with it.
Okay. So another thing that I'll add to that is the idea of cultural Christianity. It just doesn't really work, in my opinion. And here's the reason why I think that. Because, so you use the term, or you brought up this slogan that I live as if God exists, or I live,
Hmm.
as though God exists. If God
Yeah.
doesn't exist, there is really no justification to follow God. So the foundation
uh,
is, it's a house built on sand. There's nothing there.
look look, the people who kind of believe in that, they are eventually gonna start believing in God.
Well,
But the way
okay, but let me just add to that.
Okay, let me finish. Let me finish. Let me
Well,
finish. Let me finish.
you keep disrupting, but go ahead.
Sorry, there's a little bit of lag, so so sorry about that.
Okay, you want to finish?
No, no, no.
Okay,
Your turn. Your turn.
so so here's what I have to say about that. Right, that they're
Hmm.
going to believe in God anyway. Jordan Peterson was the one who popularized this idea that, well, I live as if as if God exists. And then he finally supposedly made the step and he found the Lord, and now he's a what is he, an Eastern Orthodox Christian? I don't know. So
He's
then,
Catholic.
oh, he's Roman Catholic. Okay. So so the Croatian church. So then he,
Ah,
yeah, it's, yeah.
better than Protestant.
I Well, then he goes to David Rubin, who's a homosexual Jewish guy, atheist, doesn't even believe in God, nothing. He's part of Sodom. And they do a speaking tour together. And you see David Rubin and Jordan Peterson talking to each other. And David Rubin is talking about, now tell me, this is what I don't understand. Everyone's like, "Oh, we got to go against the woke, and the woke is wokeism is an attack on reality. It's a war on the natural order." And okay, fine. But then you go to Mr. David Rubin, and there's Jordan Peterson with them, and David Rubin is talking about having a kid. Well, how can David Rubin have a kid with another man? How is this different from wokeism? And then Jordan Peterson, and then we're talking about it, and Peterson isn't saying, "Hey, that is bullshit." No, Rubin is saying, "Oh, I had a kid, and I named him after you, Jordan. And remember, Jordan, how you were in tears? You were crying in joy when you found out that I named my son after you?" And they're having this conversation. You're thinking, this is bullshit. This is not Christianity. It's not even cultural Christianity. It's just bullshit.
Come on, come on. Catholic Christianity is gay as fuck.
But it's bullshit. But even the Catholic Church is against that. I mean, officially, the Catholic Church teaches against two men having kids.
Do they?
Of course,
They
yeah.
go,
The,
they
the
are going back
official.
and forth. They are
I,
going back and forth with this,
yes, I know. But
as far as I can tell.
my point is that this idea of cultural Christianity, we've seen it getting popularized by people like Peterson and people like Douglas Murray and people like Richard Dawkins, because Richard Dawkins also calls himself a cultural Christian, and we're seeing the
Yeah,
fruits.
now.
Now, well, he's been doing it for a few years, but we're seeing the fruits. The fruits are rotten. I mean, we can go to Douglas Murray. Douglas Murray talks about, the importance of Christianity for the West. He is a homosexual telling us about Christianity. How does that make any sense? I gotta laugh at that one.
Uh, I mean, okay. So let me explain to you, especially why gays are pro this kind of thing, because gays do understand that they are the they are treated the best in Christian countries. Simple as that.
My friend, have you seen
I think that's
have you seen how gay
I don't know.
activists are treated in Russia?
Well, yeah.
They beat them up.
Actually,
In Serbia too, they beat them up. I've seen videos.
yeah, but it's not like, look, in Russia, no one's gonna give a shit if you're gay. They hate you if you're gonna go with LGBT flag and dress like a woman. Then you're gonna get beat up. But let's be honest, even in Serbia, like, no one cares if you're gay.
I understand that. But my point is that Douglas Murray is a pro homosexual activist. He's a pro gay speaker. And for years he has criticized conservatives who are against the gay agenda. He's talked about how conservatives need to, and years ago he wrote this article in which he said something like,
Mhm.
conservatives need to just get with the program and say, yeah, there's going to be gay people, get over it, accept the gay
Okay.
accept this acceptance of Sodom. But in Kenya, the Kenyan government said, okay, we don't want the gay agenda, so they started putting laws against the gay agenda and all that stuff. Douglas Murray attacked the Kenyans, and he said, whoa, look at the Kenyan government this is terrible, da 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 da, because people like Murray and people like Peterson and people like Rubin and all these people, they're enablers. They enable Sodom. Do you think now you said that Russians don't care if you're gay? Okay, fine. I think the Russians I think the Russians' issue is that they understand there's going to be gay people in Russia, but they don't want the activists promoting it. That's the issue that they
Yes.
have. Okay, but then they would
Same
have
shit in Serbia.
an issue with Douglas Murray.
Oh yeah.
And Douglas Murray has an issue with those Russians.
Yeah. Look, when I'm talking about these cultural Christians and everything, I'm talking from the Western point of view, from kind of and when I say West, I think Western Europe and America. Like, this is kind of, I'm not talking from kind of looking at from Russia or from Serbia, because like, even conservatives are pretty left if you would try to look at through a lens of my country or even Russia.
Yes, Serbia. Yes, they're more conservative. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually I can explain a lot of the reasons why. Why is that?
Well, I mean, I
And
understand. I
it comes
understand that.
I mean, if I may, it comes to the main thing is how we view marriage. Like, in West, the marriage is kind of self fulfillment. It's more of a kind of individual thing to kind of self fulfill. In East, the marriage is all about creating a family. And if you want a stable structure for a family, for a kid, the best structure is, man and a woman. And Even in Serbia, the guys who are on the left, when you say to them, two gays getting married, they look at you like you understand that if you stuck penis up your rear end, you cannot create babies.
About the you said that you're speaking from the Western perspective. I'm just simply speaking from a Christian perspective. I'm not speaking from a Western nor an Eastern perspective. I'm speaking from the perspective of what is right and what is wrong. So it doesn't matter
Hmm.
what part of the world you're in. If you're in Africa, if you're in the Balkans, if you're in Russia, America, the homosexual agenda is evil and needs to be warred against. This is the bottom line. It needs to be resisted and combated, ideologically speaking. So
Okay.
any sort of attempt to push Sodom, either
Hmm.
by liberals or people who call themselves
Hmm.
new right or right wing, those people should be challenged. They should not be just embraced with open arms. Say, "Oh yes, these people are great," they're because they have some views that agree with my own. That's not my position at all. So
Look, can I tell you something? Okay, I'm gonna call your position kind of turbo Christian. Is that okay?
turbo Christian.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think that's a funny because I'm the guy who likes a lot of memes, so I would call it like that. So the problem,
turbo Christian. Okay.
yeah, like I'm just joking a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to find a kind of good name. The problem with that position is first, and this is kind of a helpful tip. If it's not meant to be like disrespectful or anything, is the problem with that position is I see this position very often going in this purity spiral. How do you say it in English? Purity spiral. Do you know what I'm
Yes,
trying
I
to say?
understand. Like
Yeah, and
Puritanism.
yeah, like it ends up very often. It ends up like being oh, I'm a more Christian than you. I'm more Christian than you. And this kind of purity spiral. It's kind of similar. It goes very often. It can go very similar like lefties. To trying to see who is woker than the other one. The wokeness spiral.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem also with your position is also it's really hard to build an allies with other fractions. And because you can't build a lot of bridges with other fractions, it's hard to kind of push some political change. And if yeah, it's really hard for your position to push this political change. And what's end up happening is the other fractions that are kind of lumping together to push this and that kind of pushed you outside of the Overton window. Because now in the West, if you question anything about homosexuality, you're basically everyone's looking at you like you're some kind of pariah or something. Like, you know, do you
Okay.
agree with me? Or
Is that your is that what did you finish what you wanted to say?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you agree with me? Or
Well, no, I don't agree with you. I so okay, so I'm gonna try to respond to you as thoroughly as I can. So when I say that I am coming from the Christian position, that means
Mhm,
that I'm coming from the Christian position. So what does Christianity teach?
mhm,
St. Paul teaches in the New Testament that
mhm,
we should have no alliances with the works of darkness.
mhm,
And St. Paul says, how can you sit on the table of God and then eat with devils? So we are not to have any sort of alliances with the wicked, people who have evil
mhm,
agendas, people who have ulterior motives. So it would be like this. Now, I don't think this is ever going to happen, but just hear me out. Here is a hypothetical situation. So
mhm,
let's say Croatian nationalists and Serbian nationalists, I'm 100% certain, have agreement on certain things. I'm 100% certain
mhm.
of it. So a Croatian
Yes.
nationalist and a Serbian nationalist will agree on abortion, they will agree on traditional marriage, family values, etc., etc. But the Croat but the
Nah, nah, nah,
no,
nah,
no, they
nah,
will they
nah,
will
no, no.
they will agree. I mean, a Serbian
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
a Serbian Eastern Orthodox Christian and a Croatian Catholic who is a religious person who says his rosary will agree with,
Mm-hmm.
they will agree with each other on the issues of traditional family values. They don't want gay marriage. They don't want wokeism. I don't see Croatian Catholics saying we need woke. I'm not seeing that. They're against this sort of thing. And I've talked to Croatian people before, and they're all against those things. I mean, I've never met a Croatian who said, oh, yeah, I love, wokeism. I love, LGBT. So there's agreement there, and that's great. But then the Croatian guy loves Ante Pavlich, and he loves the Ustasha. And so if a Serbian Eastern Orthodox Christian is against wokeism and the Croatian traditional Catholic is against wokeism, they're going to agree. There's going to be overlap in their belief system, in their worldviews, but then there's going to come a point where the two are going to say, wait a second, we're antithetical to each other to a great extent because you revere an historical figure that murdered my people. You revere Ante Pavlich. So there has to be boundaries. And we also have to understand motivations and agendas that lie behind points of agreement that we may have. So, for example, if you have, let's say, a Turkish guy, let's say you have a Turk. Now we're going to leave your realm of the Balkans. Let's say you have a Turkish guy who hates the gay agenda and he wants traditional family values and he's great, right? Like, oh yeah, we totally agree. But then you have an Armenian Christian who comes along and he agrees also in family values and all that stuff. He agrees with Christian morals. And the Turkish Muslim and the Armenian Christian can find points of agreement. That is 100% true. And they will both be against the feminist who wants to push woke culture and all this stuff. But then the Turkish guy and the Armenian guy, they have a dilemma. And the dilemma is the Turkish guy loves Kemal Ataturk. Well, Kemal Ataturk butchered Christians. But not only that, the Turkish guy loves Jamal Pasha. He loves Kemal Pasha. He loves the Pashas who organized and orchestrated the Armenian genocide. Now, if the Armenian guy says, I will not work with this Turkish guy, am I going to say, oh, Mr. Armenian, you just want to you're just in this competition for who can be the most moral? Am I going to tell the Serbian man who doesn't want to work with an Ustashist, hey, Mr. Serbian guy, that Croatian guy, he's a Christian, he's a Catholic. Yes, you don't agree with everything theologically, but you still have the same moral viewpoints. Stop trying to be in this rivalry and this competition over who can be the biggest Christian. No, I'm going to respect that Serbian guy's position. I'm going to respect that Armenian guy's position. So there's a certain boundary. Now, do I have any qualms with working with, let's say, a Protestant guy who's pro? No, because Protestants and me, I've worked with Protestants before. I used to be a Protestant. We have very, very similar moral viewpoints. But am I going to work with, let's say, a guy who is against wokeism? Okay, fine. But he loves Dave Rubin and he embraces the fact that Dave Rubin had a kid with a guy through whatever they call it, the IVF, whatever they call it. They had a child by fraternal. I don't know what they call it, right? By proxy. It's this weird sickness stuff. They farmed the child. So there's a boundary. You see what I'm saying? So if I'm working with a Protestant, right, and the Protestant is against gay marriage, he's pro-life and all these things, but we don't agree on certain theological viewpoints, I mean, okay, fine, I can work with that, right? But there are certain boundaries that I refuse to cross. And one of them is the acceptance of Sodom. I'm not going to go down that road. I'm not going to ally with people who are with Sodom, who are allied with Sodom. I'm not going to, but let me just finish this. I will not side with people who are Nazis. I won't. I will not do it. I'll give you an example from my own experience. So I was working with some French conservatives back in 2016, 17, one of those years. And they were French Catholics, and they were part of this organization. I don't remember the name of the organization, but they were part of this big Catholic organization, very conservative. They were fighting against the gay agenda in France. They were going against all this wokeism stuff. And so we were working together, and I interviewed one of their leaders, and then I did a second interview with him. His name was Xavier Perron. That was his name.
Mhm.
And I really like these people. They were really great. I mean, we agreed on a lot of things. We agreed on a lot of things. But then I started researching them, and I found out that they're totally in favor of the Vichy state, the Nazi puppet state that took over, that controlled half of France. Like totally pro
Mhm.
Vichy, totally pro Nazi. It was just, it was insane. One of their heroes, one of the main heroes of the organization, was Leon de Grelle. Leon de Grelle was a Flemish Catholic who was a member of the SS, and they revered Leon de Grelle. Said, "I will not work with you. Goodbye. I'm done with you
Mhm.
guys." So there's certain boundaries. It's not about me saying, "Oh, I'm more Christian than these other people" or anything like that. It's about certain lines that I am not going to cross. I am not going to side with communists. I'm not going to side with Nazis. I'm not going to side with people who are pro Sodom. But yeah.
Okay. Okay. Let me kind of tell you my views, and mind me, this comes from the guy who is from Balkans, which is kind of always been kind of let's say shifty region. There was a lot of things that everything was here: communism, Nazism, monarchy, you name it. Everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So look, here's the thing. I totally understand if you have red lines like this. Don't be like, don't take this the wrong way. The thing is, like, yes, you started with like Serbian pro-nationalist and kind of Ustaša Croat, Chetniks and Ustaša. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Like, here's the thing. Uh, how how fucked up this is, but I believe, like I truly believe, that the Chetniks and Ustasha could kind of, if the woke is, if kind of this feminism, this kind of leftist agenda, uh, they could bury an axe, to fight common enemy. And yeah, that's kind of they can still understand that they have a lot of differences, but they see this as more of a kind of existential threat. You know, this kind of the threat that's gonna sweep them both if they don't address this. Now, I totally understand your point of view, uh, but also maybe if you work with people who you kind of disagree, maybe you can change their minds also. Because if you just say, "Oh, I do not want to work with you,"
Sorry, you broke off for a
uh,
second there. What did you say? Say that last few seconds again.
yeah, maybe you can change their minds.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you just look, a lot of people adopt the ideas that are presented to them, you know, and very often they're not presented with kind of other better idea, you know. And if you work with someone, you can present them with kind of better ideas. If do you follow me what I'm trying to say?
I understand what you're saying.
You can, yeah, like, and that's I and this is totally like trying to help you, trying to kind of trying to help your kind of agenda. Is like sometimes you have to kind of, okay, I disagree with you about this and this, and I strongly disagree, but we agree uh, about this thing, and we're gonna work together to kind of uh, on this thing, and that's it. And then you're gonna present your idea, and you're gonna be very firm in your idea. Why do you think that your allies idea are wrong? And maybe, just maybe, they're not gonna change automatically, but they are gonna move more towards your kind of worldview. The problem is the other fractions can do that, And what's happened with kind of this Christian fraction, I'm gonna call it turbo Christian, just for a uh, kind of jokingly, is because other fractions could work together, your views were kind of pushed out of this kind of Overton window. You can't in America right now, uh, even if you're on a right or on a left, you cannot talk about gay marriage.
What do you mean you can't talk
And
about gay marriage?
I mean, you cannot be against it. You basically, if you say I'm against gay marriage, like at least what I'm seeing.
Well, you can talk about it. I mean, you have the freedom to talk about it.
Yeah, but you're gonna be looked at someone with the two heads.
Okay, you go ahead. Go on. I'm listening.
Yeah, I mean that was the thing I wanted to say, and of course you can disagree with me totally. I understand if some people are just you find them simply too disgusting to work with. I understand that this isn't kind of 100% with it, but uh, very often, if you want to kind of have this kind of political change, you will have to kind of um, work work with people on those things that you agree with, you know, and then kind of fight over the things that you disagree.
Do you think that?
At least that's
Go ahead.
yeah. Continue. At least that's what I think. That is kind of because look, uh, I want to see more Christian values. I want to see more Christian values in America, because in America, let's be honest, America it's new Rome. Whatever happens in America, it then gets exported all over the world.
Do you think that there are not? Sorry, let me rephrase the question. Are there any boundaries that you would not cross?
Hmm.
In other words, you have a set of options for people to ally with. You have a set of people that you could ally with. Are there any
I don't.
groups that you would look at and say no, even if they may agree with you on some things? Are there any boundaries that you are not willing to
Uh,
cross?
I'm. I'm not. I'm not gonna. I haven't on the top of my head. Like this is like kind of on a spot. I haven't made. Like there are probably more than this, but pro PDF, groups or anything that has something to do with children, or kind of groups that are pro transitioning kids.
Okay.
I wouldn't
So
work with it.
so when
That,
they're
that, that's on off top of my head, but certainly there are
okay,
more groups that are
fine,
in this camp.
fine. David Rubin, who is a homosexual, who is an ally with Mr. Peterson, Jordan Peterson,
Mhm.
has had a child. Now, not not biologically, but he has a child. That is forcing a child into the life of Sodom. And Jordan Peterson doesn't have an issue with that. So, by that standard, and I agree with your standard, obviously, but by that standard, you and I both would agree that we're not going to be working with Peterson or
Mm.
anyone like him. And hold on, and
Uh,
certainly we would not be working with anyone like Dave Rubin, because
I wouldn't.
they're
Okay,
both. But
okay.
but 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 when you have children, right? When you have two men, and they say we're gonna quote unquote
Mhm.
have a child, right? That's a bullshit statement. They can't have children. But let's say that they say we're gonna quote unquote have a child, and then they get I don't know what's the word, they impregnate a woman through a turkey baster. Then they have the child. Then that child is now their child legally. That is evil and vile and demonic. And and,
Okay.
and
Here.
Jordan Peterson wept upon hearing that a child that was forced into Sodom was named after him. I mean, you and I should be in agreement that we ain't gonna be
Look.
working with David Rubin or Jordan Peterson.
Look. Here's my thoughts, and this is just on top of my head. I would. I would I wouldn't work with the David Rubin. Like
You
no
wouldn't?
chance. No, 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 no,
Okay.
no, no, no chance. Yeah, but Jordan Peterson, I'm not sure. I would maybe say yes. And here is the thing: there are lot more things that I would agree with him than I disagree. And even if this thing I disagree, I wouldn't be opposed to kind of working with him. Even and I would tell them I disagree with this. I don't see this as same way you see this. And look, this is me. Like, and I totally understand if you're kind of what's the right word? More
Against.
yeah, more against or more kind of sensitive to that
It's not. Hold on.
because
It's.
it's not sensitive. How would you? I don't.
We.
Sorry, I'm a
We.
little bit tired,
It's
and my
fine.
English is
Okay.
getting worse
Let
and
me know.
worse.
Let me know if you want to end the discussion. If you're
Yeah,
too
I want to
fatigued.
continue for at least another 10 minutes. Because it's
Okay.
interesting discussion. I really enjoy it. You know.
If Jordan Peterson weeps upon hearing, and you can see it on video, they're talking about it. If Jordan Peterson weeps upon hearing that a child forced into the world of Sodom is named after him, that right there is the biggest ass red flag that anyone can show you. And it's the biggest ass sign that you shouldn't be with that movement. And the other thing I will say, and I took some notes down as you were talking. If I am
Okay.
against if I am against Nazism,
Hmm.
why would I work with Nazis? If I am against Sodom, why would I work with Sodomites? So that's my whole point is it's the Christian position. Now you're going to say, well, the Christian position or my position is a minority position, and you would be right. You would be correct.
It's not even. It's not okay. So sorry for kind of jumping in, but it's not that it's even minority position. Like a lot of people do not like they're bombarded by this kind of LGBT propaganda. They're not presented with other worldview. Do you understand what I'm talking about? This
Yes,
is
I
the
understand what
de
you're saying.
facto. So the problem is if you work with those people, you can present them and a lot of their people with your worldview. This is where I'm coming from.
If I understand you correctly, if I get invited to the Dave Rubin show,
Yeah.
which is never going to happen, but let's say
No,
hypothetically, if I get
let's
invited,
say hypothetical. Yeah.
hypothetically, if I get invited to the Dave
Yeah.
Rubin show, I will go to the Dave Rubin show, but not because I like Dave Rubin. I will go to the Dave Rubin show to confront Dave Rubin.
Yes.
That's now is that what you're talking about?
Yes, you can. Okay, especially with Dave Rubin, but you can go even like talk with Jordan B. Peterson, and you can agree with this, but then you can go on this point and say, I strongly disagree with this. This is not Christian.
Mm-hmm.
This is not ethical. I don't see from kind of let's say from kind of this not Christian worldview, just kind of rationalist worldview. uh, I do not think that two fathers, I mean, I don't can replace mother and father. Simple as that. It is not an optimal situation of raising a child.
So if
And a lot of because hear me out. A lot of people like didn't even heard this argument.
everyone's heard this argument.
I'm not sure. I'm not
I've been
sure.
hearing it
Like
since
a
I
lot
was a
of people.
kid. I mean, I've been hearing that argument. It's not a bad argument, don't get me wrong, but it's just everyone has heard this argument. Everyone has heard that homosexuality, everyone in America has heard that homosexuality is an abomination. Everyone's heard this before. Everyone's heard about the gospel. There's a Bible in every single hotel room. But I'll add something to what you're
Yeah, but
saying.
but let me tell you about this. Like a lot of the Protestant churches, like, and there are hundreds of denominations, denominations. Oh,
Mhm.
sorry about that. Are totally pro-gay, pro-this, pro-that. Like, so you're telling me there are hundreds of Bibles, and there are hundreds of churches who interpreted the Bible that you don't that Jesus is gay or something. That's the
Yeah.
problem with it.
Yeah, I know. But
You know,
those
so,
but those people are lying, and they know they're lying. They're agents of the devil. They lie and they manipulate scripture for their own evil agenda. But what I will say is that if Jordan Peterson,
liars.
they're liars. Yes, if Jordan Peterson
Yeah.
invited me, or if I got invited to speak with Jordan Peterson, I would go. But I wouldn't go to be like, oh, we're against wokeism. That's all. I would go and I would say, yeah, okay, we have points of agreement here, but I would confront him. That's what I would
Yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah. But you should, as fiercely you would confront them. You should also kind of, I don't know what's the right word, like, um, uh, you should really kind of thank him for the fight against wokeism, but also confront him on other parts. Like, uh, be kind of try to be, and I'm using a quotation marks, kind of fair, because if you just confront him, just like go full force on him, the problem is other people are gonna see you as someone who is going into purity spiraling.
Well,
you
we
know
have, yeah, this whole idea of purity spiral. I don't really know what that means. I mean, they are principles that we are here to defend. There are positions that we are here to defend, and there are boundaries that we are here to defend. There's
Mhm.
there's boundaries that we are not willing to cross, and I know for a fact that there are boundaries that Peterson won't cross. He has his own
Mhm.
position. They are boundaries that every single group refuses to cross. So I don't see why when a Christian says he has boundaries that he's not willing to cross, that all of a sudden he's purity spiraling or whatever.
No, no, no,
I,
no.
I
I'm
mean,
not saying you're
I'm
you're
not.
you're priorities, but you're to an outsider, like to an outsider, you're presenting yourself like, oh, look, I am bigger Christian than Jordan Peterson, and it leaves a kind of bad taste in people's mouth. I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about, like, kind of, you wanna win over the guy you're arguing with, and some of his audience
I'm all. I
towards
mean,
you.
listen. I'm all for etiquette, and I'm all for being polite and cordial in conversation. I don't have an
But
issue with
even
that. I've been
even
very
if you're
cordial with
even
you in
if
this
you're polite,
conversation. I've been very cordial
yeah,
with
yeah,
you in this conversation. I've agreed with you on certain points in this conversation.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But even when you're kind of polite, you can't just start attacking. You have to okay, I give you your flowers for this, and I'm gonna scold you for this. Like, this is what I'm trying to kind of convey the message.
So let me give you an example of what I'm, and their example of what I'm talking about. Have you ever heard of a woman named Camille Paglia?
No, no.
So Camille Paglia is one of the main figureheads that started out in this war against wokeism. She's totally against wokeism, and she'll agree with a lot of things that Jordan Peterson says. In fact, I know for certain that Jordan Peterson and Paglia are allies. They've worked with each other. Paglia has written a lot of things against wokeism. Okay, we got that. We got that out of the way. She's against wokeism, but Paglia is also pro pedophilia. And she once was a years ago she wrote a book. I forgot the name of the book, but she wrote a book literally openly promoting and defending pedophilia. And
What?
she even defended NAMBLA, which is an organization that is pro pedophilia in the United States. So, yes, Camille Paglia is an ally with Jordan Peterson. And there's a video you can see of Camille Paglia and Jordan Peterson talking to each other, and the video has tons of views. And they're going back and forth about, oh yeah, the woke left this and feminism is bad and blah 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 and this and that. And they're agreeing I never once see Jordan Peterson saying, "Hey, Camille Paglia, what's this thing about NAMBLA? What's this thing about pedophilia and young boys and all this sick, evil, twisted shit?" No one does that, and that's the problem with this modern day conservative movement, is that there is no, and I'm not saying this is your position, but there is no willingness, there is no even there's no desire to confront. It's all just ass kissery. It's all just sycophancy. It's all just glazing. Oh, Jordan Peterson, let's glaze Jordan Peterson. Oh, Dave Rubin, let's glaze Dave Rubin. It's just, let's glaze Elon Musk. And when I saw Camille Paglia for the first time, I thought, okay, she's against the woke and all this stuff. But then I did research on her and I read her Wikipedia bio and I was like, oh my gosh, like this woman is evil. So if I sit, so Paglia and Peterson can sit in a panel and talk for an hour or hours and agree on all these things, and you read the comments and no one is saying, hey, this Paglia woman she's pro pedophilia, she's pro NAMBLA. No one's saying that. And if I sit in a panel discussion with Camille Paglia, who is very similar to Jordan Peterson, am I going to sit there and say, oh, Camille, you're great? No, I am going to be her enemy. I'm going to be her enemy. But you see, here's my other point. But here's my point, because you said you wouldn't work with anyone who's pro pedophilia. I agree with you. But no. Peterson is willing to work with that person.
That's his standard.
But why? But then I wouldn't. But then I would not ally at all with Peterson.
The problem is okay. So here's my question. Like, first of all, I don't know anything about this woman.
Well, I mean, you can
haven't
look into it. Read her Wikipedia. Yeah, just read her Wikipedia bio.
Okay, look, I don't know anything. But first of all, like, I don't like this kind of guilt by association. This I don't like. If Jordan Peterson say, "Oh, I'm pro PDF," like, then I would have problems. But I don't like this, and I wouldn't touch this woman with kind of 10 feet long pole. But with Jordan Peterson, maybe I would bring it. Why did you like had her? Like, why did you have discussion with her? Like, and why didn't you like call her up on her kind of bullshit?
By the way, the Camille Paglia and Jordan B. Peterson interview has 3.6 million views.
Oh,
yeah.
I mean, look, if they didn't spoke about it, how many people kind of knew about that part of her? And also, like, here's the problem with this. Like, I'm skeptical of Wikipedia, and I'm skeptical when someone says that that these people are Nazis, that these people are this and that, because this kind of term Nazi or like bad people, sexist, racist, homophobic is thrown around so much that it loses its all potency. That's the problem with this also. I would have to kind of see what are their views really, like, and I don't know nothing about this woman.
Okay. Like, so you can say I question Wikipedia, but I can show you Paglia's book. You can read parts of it on Google Books, and I've read parts of it, and the pro-pedophile ideology is 100% there.
To be perfectly honest, I'm not really interested in her, but I'm not
saying that you should be interested, but my point is that she and Jordan Peterson agree on so many things. She is against wokeism, and if I was invited to a panel discussion with Camille Paglia, I wouldn't be sitting there saying, "Oh, well, we agree on this," and I would be. She would be my enemy. She would be my enemy.
When it was this discussion, because Jordan Peterson, something happened to him after his like problem with the drugs, with like his like he needed to go to Russia to get cured. After that, he really isn't the same guy.
He's the discussion happened in 2017.
I can't remember when it was. Oh, that was at the start.
Yeah, that was when he blew up. So my point is that he's
Yeah,
always
when
been
it blew
evil.
up.
He's always been evil. This guy. If a homosexual came to, now this will never happen. I hope it never happens to you. But if a homosexual approached you and said, "I named my son after you," would you be crying in joy?
Hell no.
Exactly, exactly. Anyway, I'll give you the final word. I think we've tired you out, or we not. I mean, this discussion has
Yeah,
tired you
my
out.
English is getting worse and worse.
Mm. No, it's
Yeah, sorry
understandable.
about
No, it's
that.
okay. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, well, the kind of main discussion what I wanted to kind of bring about is this kind of new right and where it's going and my predictions of it. You know. Also, uh, I already told you that this movement is basically anti-woke movement,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that a lot of people, and I wouldn't call them conservatives, but they saw this uh, this leftist woke virus is a total existential threat that they were willing to basically turn the head about everything, basically about everything. Are you gay? Are you this? Are you that? Just be anti-woke, you know. So that's the kind of position that this kind of new right
Mm-hmm.
take. But the problem is, it's not really a right wing. It's not really a right wing. It's a weird Frankensteinian monster that has a kind of kind of a common enemy, and right now they're pointed at that common enemy. The moment that common enemy disappears, you're gonna see kind of total fractioning. The stuff about PDF, gay rights, LGBT rights, and
Yeah,
stuff like that, and it's gonna start popping up,
it'll be
and
like
it's not gonna.
Yugoslavia.
Yeah, it will. It's gonna create schisms,
Mm-hmm.
and especially if the Trump is not there, or if there is not some kind of guy, strong leader that can kind of keep everyone in check.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know,
I think that's totally
you
plausible.
know,
So, I mean, I can see that
yeah,
happening. All right. Well, I think we've argued enough and talked enough,
yeah,
and
yeah. This was really fun.
it was a lot of fun, and I don't want to keep you up. So definitely enjoyed our conversation, and we can do it again when the occasion comes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sure. Uh, Also, like, see ya and have a good time.
What's that? Oh yeah, see ya. Absolutely. Zdravo, or how do you say goodbye in your language? Zdravo is hello. I don't know how to say
Uh,
goodbye.
we use Italian words. Ciao.
Ciao. Okay, there you go. Ciao. Ciao.
Ciao,
Ciao.
ciao.
Ciao tutti.